updates surrounding this Boston Red Sox team and what the infield should look like going into next season, as now we are in connections with another massive name that would play first base. I'm here to break down all the bits and pieces on this episode of Red Sox Digest. But first, remember, if you're a part of the 86.5% currently watching this video, not currently subscribed to the channel, and you want to stay up to date on everything Red Sox, scroll down and click the subscribe button. We do appreciate all the love and support, so thank you guys so very much for everything. But now let's get to it and break down what is happening with the infield for this Boston Red Sox team. Now, we've had this conversation multiple times up to this point in the offseason. What is going to happen with third base? Are we going to acquire Alex Bregman? If so, is he going to play third? Is he going to move the second? What is really going to happen? Is Devers going to be a lifetime career-long third baseman? Are we going to move him to first base? Are we going to move him to DH? And in the midst of all that, are we maintaining Tristan Casas? And if so, we have our first baseman / DH for the foreseeable future, as again, Tristan Casas is extremely young with a lot of upside, another big left-handed bat to put into this lineup which could result in which we could see a bit more pop and a bit more power throughout this lineup, excluding just obviously Rafael Devers and then the little bit of power we get throughout the rest of this lineup. So again, let's get to it and break down all of the new articles and pieces of information that we have, as it seems like now the Red Sox are in connections and possibly in talks with Pete Alonso, the power-hitting first baseman from the New York Mets, who is yet to be re-signed. One of the top names left in the free agency market that is yet to find a new home, if not returning back to his original home in the New York Mets. Now, shout out to Andy Martino for posting this on Twitter, which is obviously goes on to say, here's an update about Pete Alonso, alternatives for Mets that touches on many other players and teams. Much more, including Mets search for pitching on Hot Stove tonight at 6:30 on SNY TV. And again, if you click on the picture, it takes you to the article where he goes on to bring up the Boston Red Sox, specifically Tristan Casas of the Boston Red Sox, where he goes on to say, and I quote, according to one league source, Boston has discussed the first baseman Tristan Casas with at least one other club, not the New York Mets, and was seeking young pitching in return, while rivals see the Red Sox as less likely to trade Casas than reports indicate. It's not impossible that he could come into play for the Mets, which would open up a spot in Boston for Alonso on a team starved for star power. Now, this is a doozy of a quote. Now, this was the only time the Boston Red Sox were brought up in this article, but again, this is a massive, massive idea. The fact that Tristan Casas has already been discussed and speculated about possibly being on the move. Now, there hasn't been any concrete ideas from Breslow or anyone else involved with the Boston Red Sox organization giving us the idea that Casas is going to be moved, or has been said he will be moved this offseason. Again, we've had speculation surrounding him in the Seattle Mariners, as well as other teams, possibly even the Pirates, trying to acquire Jared Jones or Mitch Keller for the Mariners, Brian Wu, as well as Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu, But again, we've had those conversations, but nothing concrete trailing them, nothing coming from Breslow that would make us think that Casas was actually going to be on the move this offseason. Actually, quite the opposite, as we've had multiple tweets from Breslow saying that Casas is not going to be on the move. We think he has a lot of potential. We have a lot of faith in him, and we are going to put it in him going forward, hoping that he can be a reliable, massive piece to this Boston Red Sox lineup, not only next season, but for the years coming after. Now, so again, Martino throwing out the idea that Casas could possibly be available via trade from the Red Sox, that the Mets could possibly go out there and acquire another left-handed bat to play first base and not have to go out and sign Pete Alonso to whatever massive deal he is possibly expecting to receive from his longtime tenured New York Mets. But again, he is not the only crazy one throwing out the idea of Pete Alonso possibly being a Boston Red Sox, as well as Bob Nightingale, who we all know and love, as he does a lot of great reporting specifically on the Boston Red Sox, as well as the entirety of the MLB. Nightingale went on to say on Twitter, biggest MLB questions right now: Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman drama, trade rumors swirl, free agent spending breakdown. And again, if you click on the photo, it takes you to his article where where he goes on to say as follows. There currently are 8 teams showing at least some interest in Alonso, including the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox. But in the game of first base musical chairs, where 11 teams have a new first baseman, Alonso is still left standing. He may have no choice but to return to the Mets on a short-term deal with an opt-out. So again, Bob Nightingale reiterating the fact that yes, up to this point in the offseason, we've seen a lot of first basemen end up in a new home, and 11 of them to be exact, in a new position in the sense of going from one team to another at the first base position. And Alonso, despite having the massive name and the overall star production, being a multiple-time all-star, hitting all the home runs that he does hit, he is still on the board and available. Now, why is that? It seems like it's not because lack of interest. There seems to be 8 plus teams that are interested in the slugging first baseman in Pete Alonso, and it seems like the Red Sox might be one of them. Now, I have a very, very confused opinion on this. And why do I say confused opinion? It's because we've had so many conversations up to this point of the offseason about the infield, whether it involves the third base position, the second base position, or even the first base position. We've had massive conversations. But the biggest thing is we have players for third and for first. Obviously, defensive improvements could be made if we were to move Devers to first or to DH, and if we were able to move Casas to another team for more starting pitching, or younger pitching, I should label it as, whether it be starting pitching or just more depth or coming out of the bullpen, would be obviously a massive help to this Red Sox team, as again, that was one of the number one things we needed to address this offseason. Now, moving on from Casas would be difficult, as he's a young, very, very young and promising player that plays a first base position that allows us to really, yes, he's a left-handed bat. We need to add a right-handed bat. I understand that dilemma, but the idea that he could add a lot of pop to this lineup if he's able to stay healthy and active for this Red Sox organization leaves me on the fence. Now, you've heard me multiple times say, if we're going to get Bryce Miller or Bryan Woo in exchange for Tristan Casas, send him to Seattle. I've said that, and I'm still on the record saying that, and I will stand on that hill as long as this is a thing. But it's Bryce Miller and Bryan Woo. It is not Pete Alonso. It is not these other names that the Mets could possibly offer us. Those two names are very, very apart from everyone else because of the age, because of the potential, because of really what we saw last year and the year prior to from both of those guys. Despite being 23, 24, 25 years of age, they have ace caliber stuff, and if the Red Sox were able to go out and get one of those two guys in exchange for Casas, you would not hear a complaint out of me. Yes, it would be hard to let go of Casas because of the age and the upside that he does have, but again, when you're able to bring in an arm, if not one, or if not both of those guys to this Red Sox team, that changes a lot of things, not only going into next year, but for the next following years coming, as again, they are so young and promising. Now, Robbie Hyde went on to tweet this: Alex Bregman wants more years but prefers the Red Sox. Red Sox like Bregman but won't budge on the years. Nolan Arenado wants Boston, plus there was a report the Red Sox could be pulling out of the Bregman sweepstakes. Also, Cora brought up the late JD signing the other day. Leverage, question mark. Now, there again, so many moving pieces. We've had conversation about Arenado and possibly being the last possible suitor for him this offseason would be the Boston Red Sox via trade. Now, if we were to do that and he comes in and plays third, what are we going to do with Devers? Is he going to move to DH? Are we going to package Yoshida in that trade for Arenado? Because, again, it would have to be via trade to acquire Arenado, which, again, would be great defensively. And, again, he wouldn't be a zombie at the plate. He would still be productive. He wouldn't be an MVP level caliber player, but again, he would have some analytical and statistical production at the plate that wouldn't just be a blank person standing there going down on 3 strikes. But again, the defensive reasons would be the biggest boost to this Red Sox team for getting Arenado. But again, if we get Arenado, we're probably not going to get Bregman unless we go get Bregman as well and put him at second. But again, then what do? Is Casas still a part of this team? Is Devers our first baseman, or is he our DH? There's too many moving parts here to really decipher what is actually going to take place for this Boston Red Sox team, but I'm here to tell you they have a lot and a surplus of options to actually go with. It's just going to come down to whether or not they want to, one, spend some money, two, actually go out there and make some big moves and acquire some big names in exchange for moving some young and promising talent in like Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida. Again, like the rest of this offseason up to this point, we are just going to have to wait and see what Craig Breslow and the rest of this Red Sox organization decides to do at this point of the offseason. That'll be it for this episode of Red Sox Digest. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.